The alien princess mocked his armor until he took it off and walked away. The shuttle descended slowly toward the alien city, its sleek silver hull reflecting the strange lavender sky. Commander Elias Kane watched from the viewport, his gloved hands gripping the edge of the console. Even from this distance, the city looked like nothing he had ever seen on Earth. Towering crystalline spires stretched into the clouds, shimmering with colors that shifted as the sunlight bounced off their surfaces. Hovering vehicles zipped between the towers, leaving streaks of light in their wake. Elias's chest tightened, not with fear, but with the weight of responsibility. He was humanity's envoy to this world, a fragile planet at the edge of the Orion sector, and first impressions mattered. For centuries, humans had been considered a primitive species by most interstellar civilizations. Here, Elias hoped to prove otherwise. He glanced down at his armor. The polished, layered plates covered every inch of his body, reflecting authority and strength. It was functional, yes, but also ceremonial. On Earth, it would have made him look impressive. On this planet, he hoped it would at least make him appear serious. "Commander Kane," the ship's AI spoke in its calm, genderless tone. "Approaching designated landing zone. Atmospheric conditions stable. Prepare for contact with the High Court of Lytheria." Elias exhaled. "Understood," he said. He straightened his shoulders, checking his reflection in the console glass. His helmet had a sleek, angular design, meant to intimidate subtly while allowing full visibility. Today, however, it would serve another purpose. It would hide the brief flicker of unease that crossed his face. The shuttle touched down with barely a sound. Hydraulic hisses and the faint glow of stabilizers marked its landing, but the aliens didn't seem to notice. The city streets were already alive with movement. Beings of all shapes and sizes, tall, thin creatures with silver skin, others short with multi-limbed torsos, gathered as if aware that a new species had arrived. Elias stepped out onto the platform. The armor clinked softly as he moved, each step purposeful. He felt the weight of dozens of eyes on him, analyzing him, judging him. For a moment he wondered what they saw. A warrior? A fool? Then she appeared. Princess Lyra. She floated down a set of levitating stairs, as if gravity was her servant. Her presence was magnetic, tall, elegant, with skin that shimmered faintly under the lavender sun. Her hair floated around her in a slow, hypnotic wave, defying the planet's light breeze. Her eyes, a deep amber, fixed on Elias with sharp curiosity and something else, something dangerous. Amusement. "Ah," she said, her voice melodic, but carrying an edge that cut sharper than any blade. "So this is the human who thinks he can join our court." The gathering of aliens murmured. Elias felt a tightening in his chest. The princess's gaze swept him from head to toe, lingering on the armor in a way that made him self-conscious. "I am Commander Elias Kane of the United Earth Coalition," he said, keeping his tone calm and even. "I come in peace, as a representative of humanity." The princess tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. "In that armor?" She gestured toward his polished plates. "You must think very highly of yourselves to parade such cumbersome protection before a court that values grace over brute strength." A ripple of laughter passed through the aliens around her. Elias clenched his jaw, but didn't respond. His armor, designed for intimidation on battlefields far from Earth, felt suddenly heavy and absurd. He wanted to speak, to explain, but every instinct told him that words alone would not impress this court. Princess Lyra floated closer, and the laughter died as her amber eyes bored into him. "Tell me, human," she said, "do you always wear your fear like this, or is it just for the amusement of others?" The insult stung, though Elias refused to show it. Instead, he bowed politely, a human gesture of respect, though unfamiliar to the Lytherians. "I wear what is necessary for my duty. You may find it heavy, but it is built for protection, not vanity." The princess arched a perfect brow. "Protection," she said, her tone dripping with mockery. "From what? The gossip of our court, or perhaps your own lack of skill?" The murmurs grew louder. Aliens whispered among themselves, exchanging amused glances. Elias's hands curled into fists inside his gloves. He wanted to shout, to strike, to demand respect, but he didn't. Instead, he took a deep breath and reminded himself why he was here. Not for pride, but for diplomacy. A sudden voice broke the tension. "Princess Lyra, the formal greetings must continue," said a senior court official, his many eyes glimmering nervously. "We cannot let personal amusement interfere with ceremony." Lyra's eyes flicked to him, sharp and calculating, before she finally let a faint smile touch her lips. "Very well," she said, her voice softer, but still carrying a playful warning. "We will continue. But human, remember, here, appearances are as fragile as your armor." Elias swallowed. He could feel the weight of the court's gaze judging him, expecting him to fail. He wanted to retreat, to return to the shuttle, and leave this alien planet forever. But he couldn't. Not when humanity's reputation rested on his shoulders. The ceremony began. Humans were seated separately in a reserved area on the grand platform, while aliens of all ranks assembled around. Elias noticed subtle things. The way aliens moved in synchronized patterns. The way they communicated with gestures and light pulses rather than speech. The way Princess Lyra's attendants flitted around her like shadows, always vigilant. The first ritual required the newcomers to display a token of their culture. Elias presented a holographic map of Earth, highlighting human achievements in science, exploration, and diplomacy. Some of the aliens seemed impressed, but others whispered, casting sideways glances at the human in armor. Then the princess spoke again, loud enough for all to hear. "A map," she said, "is only a collection of places. Can your species show courage? Can you show ingenuity? Can you show honor without hiding behind metal?" Elias's ears burned. She was attacking not him personally, but the symbol of humanity he carried. Every armored plate, every gleaming edge, suddenly felt like a cage. He realized with a bitter twist that the princess's mocking was more than amusement. It was a test. After the formal presentations, the court invited humans to explore the city under supervision. Elias walked with his delegation through streets that shimmered with light and color, catching glimpses of alien marketplaces and mechanical wonders beyond imagination. Yet the laughter of the court and the princess echoed in his mind, a constant reminder that here humans were seen as inferior. When they arrived at the official quarters assigned to them, Elias finally allowed himself a moment of frustration. He removed his helmet and ran a hand through his hair, staring at the reflection of his tired eyes in a polished metal surface. "We'll show them," he muttered under his breath. "We don't need armor to prove our worth. We just need to be human." That night, Elias stood on the balcony of the quarters, looking out at the alien city. Lights shimmered like stars scattered across the crystalline towers. Hovercraft zipped through the skyways like fireflies. For a moment, the beauty of this world almost overwhelmed him. Almost. Then he remembered the princess's mocking gaze, the laughter of her court, the weight of centuries of human prejudice in interstellar space. His jaw set. Tomorrow, he would begin the true work of proving that humans were more than what anyone expected. He didn't yet know how. But he knew this. He would not let the princess or her court define humanity's worth. As the night deepened, a quiet determination settled over him. The humans were strangers on this planet, but they carried a strength the aliens could not yet see. They had ingenuity, courage, and a willingness to learn. And Elias Kane would be the first to show it. For the first time since arriving, he allowed himself a small, confident smile. The armor was heavy, but it was not his only shield, and tomorrow he would begin to prove it. From across the city, a faint golden light glimmered high in the tallest spire. Princess Lyra stood at her own balcony, watching the human envoy. Her amber eyes narrowed, not with scorn this time, but with something like curiosity. The armor might have made her laugh today, but what was beneath it could surprise her. And in that quiet moment, both human and alien considered the other. The game had begun, and neither side yet knew who would win. The morning sun painted the alien city in shades of gold and violet, and Commander Elias Kane could feel the weight of expectation pressing on his shoulders. Today was no ordinary day. The High Court of Letheria had issued a series of trials for him, designed not as welcoming gestures but as tests, to humiliate, to see if humanity was truly worth its reputation. Elias adjusted the straps of his armor, though he already knew it would not impress the court today. The ceremonial displays they valued demanded elegance, intelligence, and subtlety, not brute strength. And yet, Even as he prepared mentally, he refused to show doubt. Humans were adaptable. Humans were clever, and Elias intended to prove it. The court gathered in the grand arena, a vast circular space floating above the city streets. Crystalline pillars stretched upward, reflecting the soft lavender light, and hovering spectators floated along the edges, their eyes fixed on the human envoy. At the center, Princess Lyra waited, poised like a predator, her amber gaze sweeping the crowd before settling on him. "Commander Kane," she said, her voice carrying across the arena, "you have been summoned to demonstrate the qualities that your species claims to possess. Intelligence, agility, courage, and above all," she tilted her head, her lips curling into a faint, cruel smile, "honor." A ripple of amusement spread among the spectators. Elias felt a flicker of annoyance, but he held his composure. Every alien in the arena believed humans to be inferior, reliant on tools and weapons. Few understood that humans could adapt, and that Elias was far from ordinary. The first trial was simple in concept, but deceptively difficult. A series of floating platforms hovered above a deep, glowing pit. The platforms moved unpredictably, shifting in speed and height. Aliens had no problem gliding gracefully from one platform to another. Humans, the court assumed, would stumble or cling to their armor for safety. Elias stepped onto the first platform. His armor clinked, drawing the eyes of everyone present, including the princess. She raised a brow, as if mocking him silently. The platform wobbled beneath him, but he adjusted, feeling the precise movements of his feet. Step by step, he moved, focusing on balance and timing rather than brute strength. Whispers rippled through the court. "Interesting," one alien muttered. "The human, he might have skill after all." Elias reached the final platform, landing smoothly. A smattering of applause sounded, and the princess's gaze sharpened. She was intrigued now, her earlier amusement giving way to curiosity. But her expression remained composed, her judgment withheld. The next trial tested intelligence. A holographic puzzle appeared in the center of the arena, a complex lattice of shifting symbols and light patterns. Aliens approached it with ease, manipulating the symbols with delicate gestures that required precision and grace. Elias knelt before it, studying the patterns. The symbols didn't make sense at first, but he noticed a rhythm, a sequence hidden in their motion. Using logic and intuition, he traced the connections, manipulating the hologram step by step. His fingers moved deftly across the air, and slowly the puzzle began to resolve. A murmur spread across the spectators. Humans were not known for finesse in alien puzzles. Yet here he was, solving it with patience, precision, and a quiet confidence that spoke louder than words. Princess Lyra's amber eyes narrowed. She crossed her arms, a small frown tugging at her lips. Elias caught the subtle shift, understanding that she had underestimated him. A spark of satisfaction ignited in him, tempered by the knowledge that the hardest trial had yet to come. The third challenge tested courage. The arena's floor transformed, revealing a swirling, deep chasm filled with glowing, crackling energy. From the other side, mechanical guardians, tall, multi-limbed constructs, emerged, programmed to intimidate and test the human's reaction. The court expected him to hesitate, perhaps retreat, or hide behind his armor. Elias, however, stepped forward without a word. He knew his strength was not in his armor, but in his mind and in his instincts. He observed the constructs, noticing their predictable patterns of movement. Timing was everything. He leaped, rolled, and dodged, moving with a fluidity that surprised the spectators. Every step, every pivot demonstrated not brute force, but calculated precision. The constructs could not touch him, despite their speed and strength. By the time he reached the other side, the court was silent, stunned by his display of courage and agility. Princess Lyra's expression shifted subtly. She had expected fear, expected weakness, but Elias had shown neither. She tilted her head, as if seeing him for the first time, her mind already reconsidering the assumptions she had made about humans. After the courage trial, the final challenge was announced. It was not a test of skill, agility, or intelligence, but of character. The princess herself explained it. "You may have survived the trials, human, but true worth is revealed not through skill alone, but through decisions. You will face a moral choice that will define your species in the eyes of the court. Choose poorly, and you fail all." Elias's heart raced. The court had set the stage, but he had anticipated such a challenge. Humans had a unique ability, empathy, and moral reasoning, even in situations designed to confuse or trap them. He would rely on that. The challenge itself was a small chamber, glowing softly, with 2 crystal panels. Each panel displayed a different scenario. One offered personal gain at the expense of others. The other required sacrifice for a greater good. The test was subtle, yet the implications were clear. The court wanted to see if humanity was selfish or selfless. Elias studied the scenarios carefully. He could see the traps hidden in each choice. The court had designed them to tempt the human ego. But he reminded himself of the greater mission, humanity's reputation. He could not fail, not because of pride, but because failure could reinforce the prejudices that had followed his species for centuries. He stepped forward, deliberately choosing the path that required sacrifice. The chamber responded immediately. Light filled the space, and a soft chime echoed. He had chosen wisely. Outside, the court murmured in astonishment. Aliens whispered among themselves, exchanging glances. Humans were not often praised for moral reasoning by alien standards, especially when tested so directly. Princess Lyra stepped closer, her expression unreadable. Elias met her gaze, steady and calm. She studied him in silence, and for the first time, she did not mock. Instead, she nodded slightly, acknowledging his choice without words. The trials were over, but the court remained tense. Elias had survived, excelled even, yet he had done so without flaunting his armor or relying on intimidation. He had proven adaptability, intelligence, courage, and moral strength, the qualities that truly defined humanity, beyond the expectations of outsiders. As the spectators departed, whispers still echoing through the crystalline pillars, Elias felt a mixture of relief and quiet triumph. He had met their challenges head-on, not with arrogance, but with skill, patience, and moral clarity. Princess Lyra lingered behind the departing court. She floated closer, her amber eyes fixed on him. "You are different than I expected," she said softly, almost to herself. "Clever, brave, moral. Yet there is something in your pride, human, something you carry even beneath that armor." Elias straightened, sensing an opportunity. "I carry what humanity carries," he said simply. "We adapt, we learn, and we do not underestimate the world, even when it mocks us." A faint smile tugged at her lips. "Perhaps I misjudged your species," she admitted, "or perhaps I misjudged you." The human delegation followed Elias back to their quarters, the air tense but filled with a subtle respect they had not seen before. Aliens who had expected failure now regarded him differently. The armor, once a symbol of ridicule, was now almost irrelevant. It had been his presence, his intelligence, and his moral compass that had left an impression. That evening, Elias returned to his quarters, exhausted but determined. He removed the helmet completely, letting his dark hair fall into disarray. The trials had tested more than his skill. They had tested his patience, his judgment, and his restraint. Yet he knew the princess's gaze still followed him. Her interest had shifted from mockery to curiosity, and that was a far more dangerous state for a human in an alien court. Sitting at a small desk, Elias began to study the city from the holographic maps he had taken from the trials. He observed the patterns of alien movement, the subtle social rules, the signals of respect and disdain. Humanity had won small victories today, but the real challenge lay ahead. Understanding this alien civilization well enough to ensure mutual respect and survival. A soft light glimmered from the tallest spire across the city. Princess Lyra stood there again, alone, observing. Elias felt no fear, only a quiet determination. Tomorrow would bring new trials, perhaps more complex and subtle, but he was ready. Humans were not the strongest. Humans were not the most graceful. But humans were clever, adaptable, and capable of moral judgment, qualities that could surpass the expectations of even the most advanced civilizations. As the alien city glimmered beneath the lavender sky, Elias Kane made a silent vow. He would prove that humanity was not a species to be mocked. And when the time came, he would show Princess Lyra and the entire court that strength came in many forms, and armor was only one of them. Tonight, the court may have seen a human in armor. Tomorrow, they would see a human in action. And humans had far more to offer than appearances. The morning light bathed the city of Lytheria in a soft glow, painting the crystalline spires with shifting hues of violet and gold. Commander Elias Kane stood at the balcony of the human quarters, gazing at the sprawling city below. Yesterday's trials had been a success, but he knew the challenges were far from over. The court was testing him, yes, but more than that, it was testing humanity. Elias adjusted his armor straps for what felt like the 100th time. The polished plates, which had drawn ridicule and whispers of amusement just a day ago, now felt cumbersome. He realized that strength did not come from armor, not in this world. Humans had won the initial trials with brains and moral judgment, but the final test, he knew, would demand something more. A subtle chime echoed from the quarter's entrance. A holographic message blinked to life. Princess Lyra's face appeared, framed by the floating light of her palace spire. Her amber eyes held no mockery this time, only a hint of curiosity, and something else, something Elias could not name. Commander Kane. Her voice was calm, but sharp. The council has approved the final trial. It will require you to act alone, without armor, in the heart of the city. There will be observers, but their role is only to watch. Your actions, your choices, and your courage will determine humanity's standing here. Elias exhaled slowly. Alone. Without armor. That was exactly what he had been anticipating. Armor could protect the body, but it could never shield the mind, nor the judgment of those who watched. I understand, he said into the communicator, voice steady. I will be ready. The hologram faded. Elias set his jaw and removed the heavy armor piece by piece. The polished metal clattered softly against the floor as he discarded it, leaving only the simple uniform beneath, a sleek, functional design meant for mobility and practicality. For the first time since arriving on Lytheria, he felt unencumbered, not weak, but free. The streets of the city were alive with alien activity. Markets floated above shimmering canals. Creatures with multiple limbs negotiated trades with flashes of light, and towering spires reflected the sun like giant prisms. And above it all, a crowd of the court's spectators had gathered, observing from hovering platforms. Elias stepped forward, moving with careful precision. His every action was deliberate. He knew that even a single misstep could undo the progress humanity had made. He scanned the path ahead, noting the subtle signs of danger, the hidden traps that might have been placed to test his perception, and the civilians who moved unaware through the city. The first challenge appeared without warning. A sudden collapse of a bridge connecting two crystalline towers. A group of alien workers clung desperately to the sides, their limbs slipping toward the glowing chasm below. The court had orchestrated this, of course, not to harm, but to test courage and ingenuity. Without hesitation, Elias calculated the trajectory and speed of the falling sections. He sprinted forward, leaping from a floating platform to the broken bridge with precise timing. Reaching the first alien worker, he extended a hand and pulled them to safety, repeating the motion with every person caught in the collapse. Gasps echoed from the observing crowd. No human had ever acted so decisively or with such skill. And all of it, Elias realized, relied not on armor, but on quick thinking, courage, and compassion, the qualities that defined humans in their essence. Princess Lyra floated closer on her observation platform, her amber eyes fixed on him. She had expected caution, perhaps hesitation. Instead, she saw confidence and calculated action. Something shifted in her expression, the faintest hint of admiration. But the trial was far from over. As Elias reached the end of the bridge, a more complex challenge unfolded. A malfunctioning energy conduit threatened to detonate in the marketplace below, risking civilian lives. The court's observers whispered among themselves, some doubt creeping into their voices. They had expected hesitation, yet Elias showed none. He approached the conduit, studying its glowing energy patterns. It pulsed with unpredictable surges, dangerous to anyone who approached without protection. Elias's fingers traced the control panel, analyzing the circuitry. Slowly, deliberately, he rerouted the energy through an emergency channel, diffusing the potential explosion. Sparks flew, and a low hum vibrated through the area. but no one was hurt. The aliens around him gasped. Humans were rarely credited with such calm ingenuity under pressure. Elias straightened, breathing heavily but steady, and looked up toward the princess. Her gaze no longer held mockery. It was focused, intense, a silent acknowledgement of his capability. As the final phase began, Elias realized the true purpose of the trial: perception. The court and the princess were watching not only his actions, but his reaction to stress, to responsibility, and to moral choice. The final test was subtle, psychological, and Elias understood it perfectly. A young alien child, lost and frightened, appeared at the edge of a hovering platform above a busy street. The child's cries echoed, drawing attention from the crowd below. In that moment, Elias had a choice: prioritize his own safety or act to save the child, risking his position and potential judgment. He sprinted toward the platform, leaping with precise timing. The child clung to his arm, and Elias guided them safely to solid ground. The spectators fell silent, and then a wave of murmurs spread. Humans had a reputation for recklessness, but this was calculated risk, courage, tempered by responsibility. Princess Lyra descended to meet him personally. Her movements were fluid, precise, almost predatory in grace. She studied him closely, her expression unreadable, her amber eyes scanning every detail. "You removed your armor," she said quietly, her voice carrying more weight than any public pronouncement could. "You exposed yourself completely." Most would see this as foolish. Yet, she paused, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "You acted with clarity, courage, and moral certainty. You are different than I expected." Elias met her gaze evenly. "Armor can protect the body," he said softly, "but it cannot protect the mind, the heart, or the choices we make. Humans survive and thrive because we adapt, we learn, and we do what is right, even when no one is watching." Her amber eyes glimmered with something new: respect, perhaps even awe. "You have shown more than skill or bravery, human. You have shown character, and that is rare in any species, anywhere in the galaxy." The court, once eager to see humans fail, now murmured in admiration. The judgment had shifted. What was intended as mockery had become revelation. Humans were not simple, weak creatures. They were clever, adaptable, and capable of moral courage. Elias felt a quiet satisfaction. He had not sought glory. He had acted as humanity should, with intelligence, empathy, and courage. And in doing so, he had earned a place of respect in a court that had underestimated him from the start. Princess Lyra stepped closer, her gaze softening. "I admit," she said, almost to herself, "I underestimated your species. I mocked what I did not understand. But you have shown something extraordinary. Perhaps humans are not what the galaxy believes." Elias inclined his head. "We are more than appearances, Princess, more than weapons, more than armor. And perhaps, if we learn from each other, we can achieve more than either of our peoples imagine." The crowd remained silent, but the shift was palpable. Aliens whispered in astonishment, reassessing what they had believed about humans. Even the skeptics could not deny the evidence. Intelligence, courage, and moral judgment, all demonstrated in a single human envoy. Princess Lyra finally smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile. "Perhaps we shall see more of this human ingenuity," she said. "But remember, Commander Kane, this is only the beginning. True strength is revealed over time, not a single trial. And I intend to see how far you and your species can go." Elias nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had proven something today, not only to the court, but to the princess, and perhaps to the galaxy itself. Humans were underestimated far too often. Today, they had begun to change that perception. As he returned to the human quarters, the city stretched out beneath him like a living, breathing organism. The floating spires shimmered in the afternoon sun. The marketplaces hummed with life, and the court's observers lingered, their whispers filled with cautious respect. Elias removed the remaining pieces of his ceremonial armor, letting them fall into storage. They were no longer necessary. not for himself, and not for the impression he had made. Humanity's strength was not in the plates of polished metal he had worn, but in courage, ingenuity, and moral clarity. That evening, he sat at the balcony, looking out at the city. Across the spires, Princess Lyra watched him from a distance. Her gaze was no longer mocking, but thoughtful, perhaps even admiring. She had learned something essential about humans, that true strength was not always visible, and that appearances could deceive even the wisest of civilizations. Elias allowed himself a small smile. The trials were not over. The challenges ahead were many, but today had been a revelation. Humanity had proven itself, not through weapons or dominance, but through heart, mind, and courage. And tomorrow would bring new challenges, new trials, and perhaps new revelations. But Elias Kane was ready. For humans, the impossible was never permanent. They adapted, they survived, they thrived, and soon, even the princess and the court of Lytheria would understand just how extraordinary humanity could be. The next morning, the lavender sky of Lytheria glowed brighter than ever, spilling golden light over the crystalline city. Commander Elias Kane stood at the edge of the human quarters, watching the bustling streets below. Yesterday's trials had already shifted perception. The court had begun to recognize humanity not as clumsy, armored outsiders, but as capable, intelligent, and courageous. But Elias knew the final impression mattered most. Trials could teach respect, yes, but actions, decisive, deliberate actions, could inspire awe. Today, the human envoy would take a step that no one in the court would forget. He moved through the city alone, leaving his armor behind. Today, his uniform was simple, unadorned, reflecting only the strength of the human beneath it. Every step echoed with quiet confidence. Aliens paused as he passed, whispering in astonishment. Some had been skeptical before. Now, even the most doubtful spectators could not ignore him. The court had arranged a final demonstration, one designed to test everything humans were rumored not to possess. Diplomacy, insight, courage, and presence of mind. A crisis had been staged, subtle but real. An unstable energy conduit in the central tower threatened to collapse, sending debris into the marketplace below. Civilians were in danger, and the court watched, curious to see whether the human envoy would act or falter. Elias's mind raced, calculating every variable. He did not panic. Panic was a luxury humans could not afford. His species had survived countless disasters through clever thinking, adaptation, and calm decision-making under pressure. This was no different. He approached the conduit carefully. The glowing energy crackled unpredictably, and the platform he stood on vibrated slightly underfoot. Aliens whispered in the observation stands, expecting hesitation. Some even seemed pleased at the possibility of human failure. But Elias didn't hesitate. He studied the panel controlling the conduit, noting the sequence of surges and the patterns of the energy spikes. Slowly, deliberately, he traced the correct sequence, rerouting power to the stabilizers and preventing an explosion. Sparks flew, and the low hum of the energy field reverberated through the plaza. But the humans and aliens nearby remained unharmed. A murmur spread through the court. Some had expected a failure, others a human saved only by luck. Instead, they saw precision, courage, and clear judgment. The human had acted alone, without armor, without assistance, and without hesitation. Princess Lyra descended from her observation platform, her amber eyes fixed on Elias. She was no longer mocking. Her expression was sharp, analytical, and for the first time impressed. "You acted decisively," she said. "With no armor, no assistance, and no hesitation, you have shown qualities that few in this court possess, qualities that humanity is rarely credited with. Courage, yes, but also wisdom and restraint." Elias nodded. "Armor can protect the body," he said calmly, "but true strength comes from the mind, the heart, and the choices we make. Humans survive and thrive because we adapt, because we learn, and because we do what is right, even when no one expects it." The princess regarded him silently. Then, slowly, she stepped closer. "You have proven more than skill or courage. You have revealed something rare, the essence of your species. Perhaps we judged too quickly. Perhaps humanity is underestimated." The court remained silent, absorbing her words. For centuries, humans had been seen as weak, simple, and reliant on technology. Now, they were witnessing an example of human excellence, courage, and moral clarity. The whispers of admiration spread through the stands. Even skeptics could not deny the truth. Elias turned from the conduit, walking slowly away. He did not boast. He did not demand acknowledgement. He walked with quiet dignity, leaving the spectacle behind. Every step spoke louder than words. Humans acted not for attention, but because it was right. Princess Lyra watched him go, her gaze following his every movement. For the first time, she felt genuine curiosity and even respect for this human. The armor that had drawn ridicule was now irrelevant. What mattered was the person within it, the mind that had solved problems, the courage that had faced danger, and the moral clarity that had guided every decision. As he walked, Elias noticed that the crowd had fallen into a respectful silence. Aliens who had expected failure now regarded him with cautious admiration. Some whispered to one another, acknowledging that humans could indeed surprise. A small child approached him, an alien child who had been watching the trial closely. They reached out with a tentative hand. Elias smiled gently, nodding in reassurance. He knelt, speaking softly in gestures the child could understand. Even in this moment, he demonstrated something uniquely human: empathy, connection, and understanding across species. Princess Lyra remained silent but observant. She had expected humans to falter, to stumble, perhaps to rely on armor or luck. Instead, she had seen a species rise to meet challenges with intelligence, courage, and moral integrity. And she realized something important: strength was not always visible. It was not always physical. Sometimes it was quiet, deliberate, and unseen until it revealed itself at the right moment. Elias reached the edge of the plaza. Turning to glance back, his eyes met Princess Lyra's, and for the first time, there was mutual acknowledgement. No mockery. No disdain, only respect, and perhaps the beginning of understanding. "You have changed my view," she said softly, her voice carrying across the plaza. "Don't butter not da. Perhaps I judged too quickly." Elias inclined his head. "We are often underestimated," he said. "But humans adapt, we survive, and when it matters most, we act with courage, intelligence, and honor. That is what makes us strong." A ripple of quiet applause spread through the court. The observers realized that this was not about armor, strength, or technology. It was about essence. The human had shown something universal, something that transcended species: the ability to rise to a challenge with skill, courage, and morality intact. Princess Lyra studied him for a long moment, her amber eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and contemplation. "You have walked away," she said. "Not because you feared, but because you understood. That is wisdom." Elias smiled faintly. Sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to act and when to let actions speak for themselves. The princess nodded, and for the first time, she did not move to challenge him further. The court, once poised to mock, had been humbled. They had witnessed a human succeed not through weapons or brute force, but through intelligence, courage, and moral clarity, the qualities that defined humanity itself. Elias continued walking through the city, leaving the trial behind. The streets, once filled with whispers of amusement or doubt, now carried respect. The citizens and the court alike had seen what humans could do when underestimated, and they would not forget it. Princess Lyra followed from a distance, contemplating the human envoy. She had mocked him initially, confident in her assumptions. But Elias Kane had changed everything with his actions. Not arrogance, not boastfulness, not armor. Just human ingenuity, empathy, and courage. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the city in golden and violet hues, Elias returned to the human quarters. He did not celebrate, nor did he demand recognition. Instead, he prepared for what would come next, knowing that humanity had made its mark. And in the quiet of the evening, Princess Lyra watched from her spire. The armor that had once seemed so ridiculous no longer mattered. What mattered was the human within it, the mind that calculated, the heart that cared, and the courage that acted. She whispered to herself, almost unknowingly, Perhaps humans are more remarkable than I ever imagined. Elias Kane sat quietly, looking out at the glowing city. The trials were over, but the journey had just begun. He had shown humanity's strength, not through intimidation or displays of power, but through the essence of what it meant to be human. And as night fell over Letheria, one thought remained clear. Humans were not to be underestimated. Never again. They adapted. They survived. They thrived. And sometimes they simply walked away, leaving those who had doubted them to realize the true measure of their strength.